Hello everyone, welcome to McLean Church. I'm Lenora and I'm the pastor at our Union City site. We are so glad that you have come to worship with us today, whether you are online, watching on TV, or listening on the radio. Be sure to click the connection button during the online service or on our website to let us know you are here and how we might serve you or pray for you this week. Well, we have some great events coming up for you to connect with others from our church and the community. The final guys' night of the summer is Tuesday, August 17th at 6:30 and will be the biggest one yet. There will be special food, axe throwing, other games with prizes, and our friend Joel Natali will share how he keeps his faith fresh over years of ministry and the value of taking time off. Guys of all ages are welcome, and this is a great event to invite your friends to, and we hope to see you there. Glow Worship Night for teens in grades 6 through 12 starts at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, August 18th. If you have never played fruit football, you do not want to miss this event. We will play other games, eat some great food, and have a special time of worship together. There will be lots of glow sticks and other surprises, and we will share some details about our fall plans for youth group. Finally, if you are ready to find your perfect fit at McLean Church, we have some great opportunities for you. Several of our ministries at the church are building their teams for the fall. Whether you like to bake, play with kids, cheer on teams, or simply say hi and welcome friends, we have a place for you. Go to mcleanchurch.org/serve today for all of the details. And starting next week, you can talk with staff and ministry leaders about opportunities at each of our sites during our regular gathering times. We would love to help you find your perfect fit right here with us. All of these events are on our website, mcleanchurch.org, and the MC mobile app. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram too. Now let's join Megan and the team as we worship together in song.
Hello, McLean Church, and thank you for joining us. Would you please stand or join us wherever you are to worship the Overcomer? The stop sign, watching people drive by, T-Mac on the radio. Got so much on your mind, nothing's really going right, looking for a ray of hope. Whatever it is you may be going through, I know he won't let it get the best of you. Everybody's been down, hit the bottom, hit the ground. Oh, you're not alone. Just take a breath, don't forget, hang on to his promises. He wants you to know you're an overcomer. Stay in the fight till the final round. You're not going under, 'cause God is holding you right now. You might be down for a moment, feeling like it's hopeless. That's when he reminds you, you're an overcomer. You're an overcomer. 'Cause amen, great I am, the one who overcame death. He's living inside of you. So just hold tight, fix your eyes on the one who holds your life. There's nothing he can't do. He's telling you
In Isaiah 41, God says, "But as for you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, my chosen one, descended from Abraham, my friend, I have called you back from the ends of the earth, saying, you are my servant. For I have chosen you and will not throw you away. Don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will hold you up with my victorious right hand." There is no shadow that has ever overcome your light, and there is no rival that could ever stand against your might. You've always been with us. Every battle you've already won, oh, we've already won. There is no weapon that has ever left a mark on you, and there is no army with the power to conquer truth. You've always been with us. Every battle you've already won, we've already won. Show me one thing he can't do. Show me a mountain he can't move. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me waters he can't part. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. It's possible. There is a kingdom, yeah, that's advancing at the speed of light, and in his kingdom, every dead thing is bound to rise. Oh God, our Redeemer, he is faithful to revive. Oh, he will revive. Show me one thing he can't do. Show me a mountain he can't move. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. You know it's true. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me waters he can't part. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. It's possible. Oh, all of my fear I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment and break every chain. Oh, all of my fear I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment and break every chain. Oh, all of my fear I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment. Show me one thing he can't do. Show me a mountain he can't move. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me waters he can't part. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible.
Our mission at McLean Church is to eliminate barriers to give people access to Christ, and we appreciate you partnering with us in this effort. It's easy to share your tithes and offerings from anywhere you are. Just tap the Give button during the online service, on our website, or on the MC app. Thank you again for your generous support of the work of McLean Church.
Well, welcome everyone. No matter when you're joining us or where you're joining us from, we're so glad you're part of what we're doing here at McLean Church. We are airing this presentation the week of August 15th, and I want to start off by saying a great big thank you to the many members of our congregation who contributed to Erie Gives. What a great event for our whole Erie region. Once again, Erie Gives broke a record in terms of the number of contributions to nonprofit organizations in our region. What a great testimony to the heart of our community overall, and what a great testimony to the heart of our church. You know, we asked that you consider giving because we had a goal of $20,000 to help us upgrade some of our technology and to make some repairs to our Edinburgh facility. We raised over $23,000, and I'll tell you, what I so appreciate about our church is that every time we ask you for help, every time we have a financial need, you always respond in great generosity and faithfulness. Thank you for contributing to us on Erie Gives Day. Thank you for contributing to other organizations in our community on that day. Again, a great win for our region. Well, we are taking time this summer to reacquaint ourselves with some of the teachings of Jesus as we've looked at some Jesus stories from the biographies of his life found in the Bible. We call them the Gospels. They're books entitled by the names of their authors, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And we're trying to set aside maybe some of the preconceptions we've had about what Jesus was saying and doing, and try to look with fresh eyes and with originality of what the text actually tells us Jesus said and did. And last week we looked at a passage from the Sermon on the Mount, a very familiar passage about loving our enemies, and we talked about how we go about doing that. We're going to review that this week a bit, and then we're going to look a little deeper at this teaching as we consider, why did Jesus ask us to do this? What was the significance of Jesus telling us to love our enemies? So remember, the Sermon on the Mount is a section in the biography of Jesus where Jesus goes up onto a mountain and begins to teach his followers. And we said last week that the biographer is clearly trying to make a connection between Jesus and Moses, showing us that Jesus is going to take the teachings of Moses, which have guided the nation of Israel for 1,000 years or more at this point in time, And Jesus is going to begin to transform and extend and even transcend some of those teachings and ideas as he applies them to new world realities, as he begins to get his followers to think in new ways about their existence and their connection to what God is doing in the world. So the Sermon on the Mount begins really this transformative teaching in a formal way of Jesus. And the passage we looked at last week was from Matthew chapter 5, beginning in verse 43. Let me read it again for us briefly. Jesus says, "You've heard that it was said, 'You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect." And we noted last week that this is a beloved teaching of Jesus because in our minds it sounds so wonderful and ideal that everyone would love their enemies. But again, as we began to see last week, there's something much deeper going on here than just a flowery saying or just a warm sentiment. There's something very deep about the nature of how we define ourselves, and as we're going to see today, about how we identify ourselves with God's greater purposes in the world. So remember, Jesus teaches us how to love our enemies, and the way we do that is through prayer. And we made the distinction last week that love is not the same as like. You can love people that you don't like. You can love people authentically with whom you want to have nothing to do. You can love people with whom you genuinely disagree. You can love people who you have boundaried off from your life. You can love people who you believe still should be held accountable for their actions. You can love people and not approve of what they do or even how they think. You can love people even if you're not at a point of liking them, because love at its core is wishing or wanting or acting toward the well-being of another, regardless of how you feel about that person in a given moment. And if we just stop right there, wouldn't our world, wouldn't our community, wouldn't our workplaces, wouldn't our schools, wouldn't our families be so much better if we could just enact that simple principle? If we could just wish and work toward the well-being of all people, regardless of if we agreed with them or liked them or not. Well, that's what Jesus is calling us to do. And remember, prayer is the means by which Jesus teaches us to actualize this ideal. And again, we said last week that prayer is such a significant discipline because it verbalizes inner intent. So it begins to make concrete these ideals I have in my mind or in my heart. How do I begin to think positively toward? How do I begin to wish for the well-being of another person? I verbalize it in prayer, not to convince God to be for another person, but to begin to transform my thinking about another individual. And again, we know this works. As I begin to verbalize well wishes and good intentions for other people, people even that I do not like, I begin to find my thinking transformed to see these individuals as people, as human beings, as not all bad and not all good, but as the unique mix that humanity, including myself, is. So prayer becomes this discipline by which I begin to transform my thinking about other people, and by which I begin to define myself not over and against my enemies, but I begin to define myself by my union with God. And this is what Jesus is going to move into as he continues in this teaching. I want to pick it up once again in verse 44, where Jesus says, I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And then he tells us the why in verse 45, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. Why does Jesus command us to love our enemies, to wish for the well-being of even those we don't like? Well, it's because there's something in this that connects us to the very nature and reality of God. There's something in this practice that, well, Jesus says, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven, using a family analogy to say this practice somehow connects us to the very being, to the very essence of God, to the very source of life in the universe. There's this cosmic connection that begins to happen as I start to see other people not as my enemies, but as other human beings with which I have an implicit union or connection. And Jesus is now going to explain further or demonstrate more specifically what he means by that when he says, for he, that's God, makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. He makes the sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. What do we know about first century Palestine? It's an agrarian economy. The ability to successfully raise crops is what is going to guarantee not your financial well-being as we might think about it in commercial agriculture today. In the first century, it's going to guarantee your existence, your survival, your life. Are you going to have food to eat for the year? Are you going to be able to feed your children? Are you going to be able to feed your livestock? It's all dependent on the success of the growing season. And what are the two components that are essential to growing anything? Sun and rain, right? So now using this very agrarian image or example that would have made complete sense to the people who were first hearing Jesus, Jesus demonstrates that God really doesn't have enemies, does he? God manifests a benevolence toward, a kindness to, a love for everyone. And he does that while still recognizing distinctions among people. Fascinating that Jesus uses the term the evil and the good. The righteous and the unrighteous. It's not that God is not aware of the differences within humanity. It's not as if God doesn't make any kind of moral judgment or assessment. But it is that God wishes, brings, acts for the good of all people. It's as if God doesn't really have enemies. And while to be sure that image of enemies of God shows up throughout the biblical record, particularly in the Old Testament, what this teaching of Jesus does is it redirects that thinking. It begins to orient our thinking not toward God having people that He's for or against, but of God loving, wishing for the good, acting for the good of all. And now this model becomes the model Jesus calls us to embrace. Why? Because when I act this way toward other people, are you ready for this? It connects me with the ontological center of reality. And that's a lot of verbiage to say this. When I begin to act as God acts, there's something deep within me that is connected with how reality is designed to be or how I am designed to exist. There's something fundamental about the reality of the universe and the reality of life expressed in the nature of God that I am connected to when I stop seeing the world and my life in terms of those I am for and those I am against. And I begin to see life, reality, and other people through the lens of God's perspective, wishing for the well-being of all. This becomes particularly clear when we consider two passages, one from the Old Testament and one from the New Testament, where this essential reality of God is revealed. Back in the book of Deuteronomy, there's a statement that we read through very quickly without much thought, but for ancient Jewish culture and tradition and religion, was central to their understanding of God and of life in general. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, the author writes, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." The Lord our God is one. Central to the nature of God is a fundamental unity. And if the world flows from the essential being of God, if life flows from God as the source of life, then there's something about oneness that is central to the human experience or central to the experience of life in the world, in the universe. There's an essential unity that this ancient author reveals about the essence of God and hence the essence of life itself. And Jesus, writing hundreds, 1,000 plus years probably, after these ideas in the book of Deuteronomy are located in Israel's history, Jesus makes a similar statement in John chapter 17, another biography of Jesus, where he says he prays for his followers. And what does he pray for them? He prays that they would be one. That they would be one. That this fundamental, essential unity found in the nature of God Himself would begin to be manifest in the life of Jesus' followers. Why? Because when I live with this essential unity with all of humanity and all of creation, I am deeply connected to the source of life or the essence of being in the universe. This is big stuff that Jesus is talking about here. It's not just a simple moral or ethical teaching that, hey, you ought to try to love people that you don't like. That Jesus is teaching His followers something much deeper about how you find health in your perspective, health in your existence, wholeness in your being, as you begin to see the world around you not in terms of who you are for or against, not in terms of who is your enemy and who is your friend, but as you begin to see everyone around you through the lens of a genuine benevolence or genuine love that wishes for the well-being of all and acts toward and for their well-being when appropriate and when possible. And in so doing, brings about an understanding of yourself not defined by who you are against, but defined by this connection with the essential unity of the universe, which is God Himself. Now, if that's all kind of a lot of verbiage for you, just think of it in these terms. Like we said last weekend, it seems to be fundamental human nature, maybe dysfunctional, broken, or fallen human nature, but human nature is still the same. That we derive a lot of our energy for life by being against things, by creating enemies, by identifying some people as in and other people as out, and really energizing or motivating ourselves by our againstness toward others. And in a practical sense, this is why am I the only one who will often find myself having conversations in the mirror with people I'm really angry at, with people I'm really mad at, with people I really don't like. And I think of all the things I'd like to tell them. I think of all the things that I would like to do that would cause them grief if I had the power and ability to do that. That kind of thinking, it's in a very dark way energizing to our person, isn't it? And think about the number of people you know, institutions you know, whose entire existence seems defined and energized by being against something. Jesus is trying to teach His followers and us that this is not a healthy way to live, because central to the universe's nature and being that flows from the nature and being of God is this essential unity, which is not uniformity. It doesn't mean we can't still make distinctions. It doesn't mean we're not able to think that my thinking might be better than theirs. It's not that we're not able to say, I think this person is right and this person is wrong. It's not about uniformity. It's about this unity of goodwill or benevolence or love that says, I am in this experience with everyone, and to the degree that is in my power, I want to wish for and act for the well-being of all people. And Jesus tells us that I can begin to practice this by a simple prayer. God, please bless Sam. God, please bless Sarah. God, please help Steve. God, please take care of John today. I might not like these people, but God, I want their best. As I begin to do that, my mind becomes transformed as I start to see other people as people, not as my enemies or things that I am against. My life now becomes defined by a fundamental unity with all humanity or all creation. And guess what else happens? The world becomes a better place to live. My community becomes a better place to be, because I'm not out there fostering antagonism or negativism. I'm promoting love. My workplace becomes a better place to be because now I'm not an agent of gossip or fueling the flames of division and strife, but I am truly trying to act for and with the goodwill of everyone in mind. School becomes a better place to be because I'm no longer participating in trying to run other people down or make one group in and one group out. But I truly understand that God loves and cares for everyone, and I want to model that in the same way. Our families become better places to be. Because again, even if I don't always agree or like what my family members do or who they are, I'm manifesting a fundamental desire for their well-being, for goodness in their life. This not only transforms me, it transforms the world around me, which is so clearly why Jesus called his followers to love. Which is so clearly why Jesus called his followers to be one. Which is so clearly why the Old Testament writer called the ancient Jewish people to see God as a fundamental unity. So, why not continue to put it into practice? Pick someone you're really struggling with. Pick someone who is clearly your enemy. Begin to say a simple prayer for them each day. Make it a discipline that you integrate into your life. Same time, same place, every day. God, please help blank today. Say that prayer, leave it at that. Watch how that simple practice changes you and transforms you. And I thought after last week, you may want to be careful of one thing. Be careful about saying to other people, I'm praying for you. They might wonder why.
Jealous for me, love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. And oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us so. Like a hurricane, I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. And oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us. How
Thanks again for joining us today. We will see you in person at one of our locations or right back here at McLean Church Online next week.